Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the session concerning smart terminals of the future. This session is designed to enable the evaluation of terminal technologies to identify optimum technology investment strategy to improve your return on investment. I'm pleased to have Francesco Volante, the CEO of CETA, Hussein Dabbas, IATA's Vice President to the Middle East and North Africa, and Mohamed Karzoun, COO of Emiratech, here to answer some questions. I'll take a seat for the rest. Mohamed, perhaps I could start with you. Which airport terminal processes are essential for optimized operations?
Well, thank you for the question. In fact, what we believe nowadays is very important and essential for the airport experience would be enhancing the overall process and operations from all angles. So we would look at it from a passenger point of view, as well as an officer point of view. So looking at the operations from an officer point of view would be improving the whole experience by providing robust, smarter systems, information systems, that they give the information an officer needs, highly secure, highly operational. They give all the details that are needed at let's say, a click of a mouse, and then they can process transactions quickly. The other part of it is from a passenger point of view. So from a passenger, what's important for the passenger nowadays is to minimize stops, to minimize confrontation maybe with officers, and to have a quick journey. So for this purpose, we provide the gates, the e-gates. And looking at the e-gates, it's not just a device. People would think, well, it's a nice device sitting here without stamping a passport. It's a quick experience. Comparing, by the way, the gate to the officer, maybe an officer would require an average of 1 minute to process a transaction, while a gate can take maybe 15 to 20 seconds. But this is not the only value. The value is actually the information system behind it, the integration between the different pieces sitting there, and with the back-end applications to ensure security from a country point of view, and to ensure, of course, a nice journey from a passenger point of view.
Okay. And Francesco, if you could have your opinion, same question?
Yes, I believe this is a key question. Yesterday we were talking about the growth that will be in the airport, and the volume and the traffic that will continue to grow. We are speaking about more than 5 billion of passengers that will go in the airports by the 2029. So big traffic, a big volume. So I believe that the real question here is that to optimize overall the end-to-end process in order to avoid and reduce congestions in the airport and improve the passenger flow and the passenger experience. Now, that is something that can be achieved, yes, improving each specific process in the airport. So you can do that, improving the check-in, improving the baggage drop processes that you have, improving the boarding. But at the end of the day, we should consider that the real benefit for the passenger and for the airport is when you improve the overall efficiency. And so there is a lot of interconnection between the processes in the airport. And so is that where I believe that attention should be put when we look forward. Now, of course, the technology can be an enabler for that. And when you look to the technology, there are three main areas of impact that will happen in the future in order to cope with this new dimension that is required in the airport. The first one is around the mobility. I believe that the mobile technology today, even more in the future, will change the way in which we go to the airport, and we look to the processes that are there. And that will happen both in terms of mobile technology to access, to do the checking, to have a boarding pass, to have that as your wallet and your payment with NFC technology. This is going to happen. As well as a device that will allow airports to geolocate people and be able to provide better information to them. And this is something that I see is happening already. In our experience, already we have some airports where we are trying this kind of technology to improve the passenger flow. The second technology is the self-service, and self-service is not only kiosk that allow you to have your boarding pass and to do your change of your ticket and so on, but as well self-service to manage even more in the future your baggages. And the bag drop self-service is an example. And so that is also a way in which you are going to improve the processes and allow expansion of the airport or improve capacity in the airport in the future. And the last one, very, very important, is the data sharing, the data analytics, the capability to have an aggregation of data that will allow us and in the airport to address the various passengers in a different way and the various phases in a different way. And there where the cooperation is necessary even more in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Hussein, with your IATA hat on, I wondered if you could tell us how you think the passenger experience can be improved by smart terminals.
Sure. Obviously, it's very clear that during the past 2 decades, the growth in passenger numbers has really become something of a phenomenon. We're expecting that in 2013, there will be over 3 billion passengers up in the air. Unfortunately, the airports have not moved at the same pace in terms of preparing the infrastructure for such growth. However, with IATA, back in 2004, we started on a program called Simplifying the Business. And by that, we try to go through the value chain and the process that the passenger takes from the minute they start their booking to buying the ticket and going to the airport and so on. And I can confirm that in 2012, airlines saved around $18 billion in processing fees with the passengers. And airports now are catching up in this system, and that's why we call them smart airports after smart TVs and smartphones and so on. So I'm very happy that we do have smart airports. 50% of people that were asked said that they prefer to use machines when they get to the airport rather than to interact with check-in agents or passport control and so on. And we're seeing this growing at phenomenal rates. Obviously, in IATA, we believe that more and more people, and by 2020, 80% of passengers will go through the process at the airport without having to interact with any human being. Now, this will save a lot of money for the airports in terms of resources. It will save the airport space, and it will make the process of passengers from the drop-off until the boarding far more convenient than it is presently. And this will help the airport because passengers, instead of waiting at on lines for check-in or for security and immigration and so on, is to use the facilities, shop at the duty-free, eat at restaurants and so on. Even the security part, and we're talking about what is called the checkpoint of the future, where we will have 3 channels for passengers, where an identified passenger will go through very minimal security check, half-known passenger will go slightly more, and then those passengers who we have no records of will go through the normal check. So everything is being done right now to make the process at the airport a most pleasant experience, because if you ask people now, the airport part of the journey is the most troublesome and cumbersome for them.
Okay, great. Mohammed, have you got anything to add on that one?
Yes, in fact, in addition to my colleague just said, from Emiratic point of view, being a local partner to the authorities and being a regional player, we believe in the 90-10 rule, or if we call it 95 and 5% rule, where people with no exceptions, they have to have a pleasant experience. So from the time you leave your house till the time you reach the airplane or even beyond that, it should be a pleasant, seamless experience, less stops, less security checks and everything. This means keeping the security, of course, as a target, and the experience. So having customer satisfaction, having more time for shopping rather than more time for security checks. While people with exceptions would be maybe having a different process, but again, we don't make everybody face the same experience of the 5% or the 10% that we are talking about.
Okay, thanks. The next one's really a question for all of you, but I'd start with Hussein because of his IATA role, by asking what may be done to engage government, airport management, airline and the end user stakeholders in smart terminal development.
I think many governments, and if we look at maybe governments in this part of the world, have realized the value of aviation and have seen the benefits of how much it presents to the GDP. If we talk about the United Arab Emirates, with the growth that we're seeing in terms of airport capacity and destinations and passengers, aviation industry alone adds around 15%, represents 15% of the total GDP of the United Arab Emirates. And this is a good example where governments are realizing this benefit and investing in it, and investing in the infrastructure, investing in the facilitation of passengers to come through or to this part of the world. And I think, and I believe that the countries that realize this will benefit a lot. If we go back in history, when Lee Kuan Yew, the Prime Minister of Singapore, when he first took over as a Prime Minister, he said, the first thing I want to do is to make a first-class airline and a first-class airport. And this has been going for the past 3-4 decades. And this is what created Singapore as a country, is to have a great airport and to have a great airline. And we're seeing this also in Dubai, where the infrastructure is awesome. It's unbelievable. And an airline is great, the same with Etihad and other airlines in the region. And this is something that many countries around the world do not recognize. I mean, we had the speaker from Heathrow. I feel very sorry for them that they are unable to grow or build another runway. What they're basically saying is that Heathrow is shut. That's it. There's not going to be any more growth, either at Heathrow or at Gatwick. They need to build a new airport. Yes, I think they do, if they cannot expand what they have right now. And this is a clear example of what governments should do if they want to grow. The airline industry is growing between 6 to 8% annually. We're saying that Heathrow is not going to grow anymore. And this is a problem for the government. It's a problem for London. It's a problem for the business setup in the UK. So definitely countries that are forward-looking, countries that understand the value, what aviation brings to their country, need to invest and need to invest heavily. And we're seeing now that the private sector is taking over at many airports. If we look at, for example, in Jordan, the government did not have enough funds and resources, so they basically had a BOT with a consortium of companies to handle the airport and bring it up to a world-class level. And I believe this is also very important for many countries. We're even seeing this in Saudi Arabia, where they are having a BOT for Medina Airport, you know, basically saying this is a service sector, let the service industry handle it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And Francesco, you have an opinion?
Yes, I believe that if the airport is the touch point of our industry, and where all the stakeholders are and operate, and everything's happen, right? Of course, there is a need to engage all the stakeholders in that, and each of them plays a different role, but this has to work as an orchestra, right? So my view is that the first point is to engage them on a common and cooperative approach. I believe that is fundamental. So the passenger today wants to go through an integrated process there. And so the point is to have systems that are in common and then can really improve the operation. This could be done only if each of the stakeholders are contributing to that and are willing to share the same objectives. Now, of course, there is a role for the associations like IATA, ACI, that they play a role in order to identify and develop standards that between the various processes that could be applied not only in a specific airport but elsewhere. The last things that passenger wants is to deal with, for the same basic processes, which are exactly the same, to deal with different technology on different standard when they change one airport with other airports or one airlines with other airlines. So I believe the role here for the associations is very important to help the industry to go towards the right standards. And I've seen this happening in the past. You know, if we look to the e-ticketing, for example, was introduced and is now a reality for the world. So everyone has adopted that, and this is given benefit to the overall ATI industry. So we need to look to this industry as in a cooperative way. So I believe that, you know, that is where, at the end, we are going to improve, and the industry overall is going to improve. I believe there is a strong need for each player in the airport to share data. And that is a fundamental point. I believe that if we are able to put data in common and to share this data, then we can improve the process and the passenger experience. If we start not to do that and say, I own the passenger, you know, at the end, each one will have his own process optimized, but the passenger will not be satisfied. The passenger is not owned by the airport, by the airline, by the ground handler, or by the people that are there. The passenger is owned by himself. He wants to go through it and manage. And we see already that they want to be in control of their journey. And so we need to facilitate that. And the only way is to have information that can improve it. For example, you know, when you share data about you can optimize, for example, the passenger flow. You can have predictive data that can tell you that over time you need to, for example, change the gate because you will have a huge passenger flow at that time in the airport. And you can do that only if you aggregate this information. And then if you have, for example, this information that are connected with the staff level information, you can reallocate staff based on that, or you can improve the aircraft turnaround also because you can optimize these resources. So the need to have a common resource center, a control center in the airport where each stakeholder could provide input and data became important. It's the only way to change from data in something that became actionable information and real-time information that will allow you to take real-time decisions. And that is what really is needed.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. And do you have a view on that, Mohammed?
Well, if I would look at this from a technology point of view, and maybe before I even talk about the technology, I would like to mention something about Dubai being an important hub in the region. Dubai Airport was able to process about 55 million passengers in 2012. And that was entry-exit transactions, including transit. And now they are talking about 95 million in 2020. So this means if we look around us now, Terminal 3 is being expanded, and there is the new concourse. Terminal 1 is being expanded. Terminal 2 is being expanded. Al Maktoum Airport is now becoming a reality. So this puts a responsibility on each and every one of us, being solution providers and partners to the authorities, to look at the thing from a holistic point of view. So everybody would do their part to ensure, at the end of the day, as we said, it's an efficient, it's an effective process that makes people's life easier.
Okay, thank you very much. I have...
Yeah, if I may add something here, and of course, to complement what Mr. Hamad is saying, definitely the growth that is taking place is phenomenal in any standards. However, we should expect problems, and we are facing problems now in terms of the air traffic. There's a huge congestion. I'm sure everybody who flies into Dubai at certain times will see that the plane is circling 1, 2, 3 times before it is allowed to land. And we know for a fact that traffic going east out of the UAE is severely affected by air traffic control congestion. And this is something that the governments need to look at and work very hardly on solving it. we're seeing the growth in passenger numbers. We're seeing the development at the airports, but we're not seeing anything up in the air to allow this traffic of aircraft move very slow. I can assure, I know for a fact that most flights going east out of Dubai and Abu Dhabi at the peak hours are forced to spend around 40 minutes waiting for a slot to take off. And this means that they're burning fuel, they're delaying passengers, delaying connecting passengers, inconveniencing everybody else. So there is a need. We're talking about a bright picture in this part of the world, and we're very proud of it. However, there is a need to look at a total picture, and that is the air traffic control congestion that is being faced in this part of the world.
Okay. Thank you. It's interesting. I have other questions, but bearing in mind how much time we've taken, perhaps we should go to the audience next to see if any questions for the panel. Is there anyone? No? Oh, two. Could we have a microphone, please?
Good morning. Jafnan Al-Dosri, Aviation, Saudi Aramco Aviation. Two things regarding improving the airline services or terminal design. If the airline can offer, as they do for the boarding pass, the online check-in boarding pass, if they can do online drop-off baggage or luggage points downtown as a courtesy service or for starting with the business class or the first class, then later on at the economy or the other coaches. This can ease the process of the flow within the terminals. So I think that the most of the time spent is at the check-in counter, so which can be minimized by using drop-off points downtown. And that can be done like 5 hours prior or 6 hours. They can't publish any like a certain time or regulation time limit for the drop-in downtown. This is one thing. The other thing for the departure out of Dubai, as a captain, in my belief, the standard departure of Dubai need to be reviewed. We have the most empty spaces around here in the Middle East. Especially within GCC, we are not congested area here. So if they can assign like east and west departure, the waiting time and slot time will be minimized to a minimum, and assign an altitude plus as you can see, there's like 2 or 3 departure for runway 12, left and right. And as I heard from Mr. Ali Naqab yesterday, the GA aviation is not taken off before 11 a.m. Which is not good for a businessman or the private jet users. So if they can revise the standard departure or the set departure for the both runways, that can minimize the congested time or minimize the waiting time. Thank you.
Anyone wants to comment on that?
Okay, definitely there are many airports around the world that do have off-airport baggage drop-off and actually check-in for the passengers to do that up to 3-4 hours before actual departure. But not many countries allow that for security reasons and so on. But what we're doing in IATA and in cooperation with airports and organizations like my 2 colleagues sitting here is to develop, and being developed now, where passengers will print their own luggage tags and attach it to their own bags and basically just drop it off at a drop-off station. This is something part of the simplifying the business process for the entire chain of interaction with the passengers. Now, if I go back to your issue about the connectivity and the usage of airports, definitely there are peaks of very heavy traffic. And I'm talking about the peaks where, for example, in Dubai, I believe there are 4 peaks where all the traffic comes in and then leaves within the few hours, and this is where you have the congestion. Yes, maybe at 2 o'clock in the afternoon you don't have much traffic going on, but you know, airlines build their network on connectivity to make sure that the planes come in, and drop passengers, and leave again. It would be great if you have you know, a consistent schedule where you can utilize these weak periods, and many newcomers to the market are not offered slots in the peak time because there are no slots available. They are forced to come at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But we also need to understand that this part of the world, during the summer, the temperature at the runway is extremely high, and therefore many airlines and many airplanes don't even cannot fly or take off during certain days when the temperature is really up in the upper 40s and so on. That's why they avoid the midday travel and prefer to take off during their you know, night or early morning or late afternoon.
Okay.
I hope I answered your question.
Maybe I can add a few comments from the technology perspective point of view. Of course, you know, Dubai is, as you said, is a specific location, but you can improve the process not only doing to collect baggages, you know, do backdrops at the hotel or remotely, which creates some issues, as you said, from the security point of view. But you know, there are other ways as well that you know, you can improve the processes and reduce congestions. For example, you know, I can give you some example. One is that you can do the baggage drop at the airport and receive the tag on your mobile. You don't need to print it even more in the future, right? And you can track with that where your baggage is over the journey. And so that is something that will improve you know, completely the experience of the passenger. You can even receive, you know, a message on your mobile when the baggage is on the carousel, when it's delivered to you. So you don't need to wait 20 minutes there until the baggage will arrive. This is something that we are testing. This technology is there, will become available very soon. There's already some pilot on that. Another example I can give to you is what we call the Halo project that we have in Europe with EasyJet. So where you can arrive and instead to go to the check-in counter, the people can check in you through a mobile phone, and so you can get the baggage the baggage tag there in that moment. So you virtualize the check-in and you get out from the rigidity of the space that needs to be allocated to you. This is EasyJet using that now already worldwide, and specifically in Europe, right? So, I mean, I'm bringing some example that, so the improvement in the airport operation is not only, you know, yes, let's do something remotely, because you introduce other issues there, which is that the airline don't know where the passengers are. And so, because no, at that point, when you get in, you do that remotely, then they need to see if you are in the airport. You are going to do the check-in really. And there is where other technology could help, which is the geolocation. So if you do that through your mobile, then you know, they know that you are in the airport area and you are going to be boarded, and they can provide you specific, personalized information and give you information about the gates, the queue, the time that you need to get there, and so on. So I believe the world will change in this, and the technology is there to help for that. It is already today.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. There was a gentleman on the front table who wanted to ask a question. No? Nobody else? Okay, if I could ask one. Obviously, the technology that we have today is fantastic, and it works 99.99% of the time. I wonder, I worry slightly about how, because technology has replaced people, and what do you do on those very rare occasions when it all goes wrong? You know, what leeway do we have for a plan B? I wondered if there are times when technology could potentially be doing the passenger a disservice in some way. Not very often, but every now and then. Francesco?
Well, this is a very important question, and you know, We have at CETA an escalation process and outage that I receive on my mobile. So it's one of the main priorities that I have as a CEO of a company, because, you know, sometimes we don't think about that, but in the past there was always the possibility to go manual and to do some process manual, right? Today, I give you an example, a very, I would consider stupid application, which is the baggage reconciliation system, which is a PC-based application. You know? If this doesn't work, you know, you can have, for half an hour, we can have, for example, in a very busy airport, what could be Dubai or London, you know, thousands of baggages that, you know, are there in the airport, and people that cannot fly. So, you know, the value of this application is becoming completely different and the criticality that was before, because before you had the agents that can handle it. Today you cannot do it anymore. So, I mean, it's really key to understand that you need to have, you know, a backup system. You need to have a system that at least, you know, I would differentiate in few ways. So, first of all, you need to have a backbone, a communication backbone and infrastructure that has to be very solid, and which will allow you to provide the service that you have without stopping the operation. That is fundamental. The other point to consider is that each process, each technology that is used, you know, could fail, and this could happen. But the problem is that, you know, the implication of that failure goes to the other part in the airport. So the consequences are not just for that specific application that you are running in that moment, because as the one that I described before is one application, but you stop the operation of everyone. So you have a lot of implication. The globalization of our industry is also different, introduce other consequences. You can have an outage in one place, in one airport, that imply consequence elsewhere. Mm-hmm. If you have, for example, a DCS system access to GDS, you have a problem there. You are going to stop that in many airports, not only in that airport where you start with the problem, or the delay in flying that you can have there as well. Sorry. So, I mean, the consequence of that are huge, even more for us in this industry. So, for me, 2 points are important. First of all, rely on the technology and look to avoid to have single point of failure. That is fundamental. Having also, on top of that, the capability to have a customer services organization that allow you to intervene, respecting the SLA, and make sure that, you know, the services that you receive are best in class and allow you to operate properly. These two components together make the difference in this industry. And so the suppliers and the providers need to raise the bar in order to avoid that this will have huge impact on the passenger experience as well as on the airline and airport revenues and operations. Yes. Okay.
That's great. Mohammed, do you have a view?
Yeah, in fact, I was thinking when we talk about airport experience versus technology, are we renovating, are we inventing, or are we innovating? And what I have in mind that if we look back maybe 20, 30 years ago, I wasn't there at that time, we used to have like a big book for you know, keeping the records. Now we have a system instead. We used to have an officer. We still have officers, but we have officers and gates. We used to have, as Mr. Dabas mentioned, maybe an example of Queen Alia International Airport. I remember when we were kids, we were having this, and it's still there, the drop-off baggage station in the city. They call it city terminal. So you do that before you go to the airport, just to have a more pleasant journey to the airport. Now we have those e-check-in or e-baggage drop-off. So the idea here, I think we need to make sure that we are aligning and we are putting all our efforts in the right direction so we can ensure that we have similar experiences. I'm sure people or you know, airports and countries will be, some of them will be ahead of each other, but at least we can have similar experiences as we go forward, you know, between the different countries and between the different airports.
Okay, great. And Hussein, a final
Well,
word?
actually, I think the aviation industry is a catalyst in the development of the technology. And, you know, with companies like CETA and the company here in Dubai have added so much value and have made the travel industry so much seamless in terms of moving the billions of passengers from one part of the world to the other. Had it not been for the aviation industry, many of the technologies would not have been there. If we go back to the 60s, maybe the 50s, when passengers were, you know, getting reservations on a green card, a yellow card, or a blue card, and so on, and then the industry started moving on the electronic booking engines and so forth. I strongly believe that by 2020, 80% of passengers, as I said, will not be interacting with anybody at the airport. Mm-hmm. It will be primarily going through machines, one after the other, and having the passenger select the service they want and get it at the speed they want, rather than to go through the normal process that they are going into right now. And I believe, as we speak, new technologies are being introduced to make the entire journey far seamless than what it is right now. We're very blessed to have companies that are thinking of how to make our life easier and more convenient. I mean, look at the mobile industry right now. I mean, if I leave the house and I forget my wallet, it's okay. But if I forget my mobile, oh my God, I have to go back and get my mobile because nobody can move around now without a mobile. And the same thing applies at the airport, where everybody really needs to be seeing and feeling the technology that is being prepared and produced for the people.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's such a critical topic. We could easily talk about this for the rest of the day, I think, but we're time expired already and time to move on to the next one. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.